Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Kyle Wilz. Kyle has a background in engineering and now runs a couple successful companies in the e-commerce and business coaching industries. His wife Lauren and he coach dozens of individuals looking to step into the entrepreneurial space and are well-traveled speakers on the subject. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Really appreciate it, Tyler. Thank you for having me. Great to virtually see all of you out there, and I just really love what you're doing with this virtual school assembly. I think it's a brilliant idea and really making an impact.
Thanks. Well, let me go ahead and hand you our virtual microphone, and then
That.
tell us a little bit about your story and your message on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the Cliff Notes version. I didn't necessarily plan to go the path of entrepreneurship, especially when I got into my college years. I went and studied engineering because I was good at math in high school and people told me I should do it, frankly. That was about the thought process that went on there. But I think the more I learned about what the end goal looked like in that, the more I was interested in really doing something else and experiencing something else. I wanted to differentiate myself from my peers. I wanted a little bit more choice and flexibility long term. And I think that's really where my motive and my interest in entrepreneurship started, because I couldn't see myself sitting in a Cuban office for 50 years. I grew up as an athlete. I was always outside doing things, and that just sounded dreadful to me. Some people do get excited about that, nothing wrong with that, but that was not going to be my path. So, my journey actually started while I was finishing off my college and started doing things in the e-commerce industry. And really what got me started is, number one, having that desire to do something in there and getting connected with the right people. And, one of my biggest pieces of advice that I'll give all of you and talk about it a little bit later is networking and, building those relationships is probably one of the most important things you can do as an entrepreneur. It's way more important who you know than what you know. And I think the most successful people in the business world are those that are well connected and know a lot of people that can benefit in different areas. So for me, it was meeting those right people that really pushed me to start that side hustle. And I scaled that, while I was still working as an engineer. I got my license in engineering. I was successful as an engineer, got into project management, but that was never my end goal, and continued to scale up my e-commerce business up to the point where it replaced my engineering income. And then with my wife, as you mentioned, we started our coaching business, which our goal for our entrepreneurial pursuits was never to make a lot of money, was never the cars or the flash or anything like that. We wanted choice for ourselves and our future family, which right now we have an 11-month-old girl. And we really wanted to make an impact and help other people. And I think that's been one of the neatest things about being a business coach and working with aspiring entrepreneurs, is seeing them go from really no experience in the industry and really building something successful. So, getting into, any of you out there that are thinking about that route and have that interest, I think, I wanted to start with saying, a lot of what we see and experience in entrepreneurship is through social media or through the advice of people that we know. And I can tell you this, is that the business world is not as scary as what some people say. And it's also not as flashy and glamorous as some people say. I think a lot of times we see the extremes. You see the cars and the money and the travel and all this stuff, or you hear the dreadful, well, you've got to quit your job and you've got to, go all in and you're going to risk a lot. And, I think in these days with all the options out there, Tyler, and to all of you, you can take a variety of different routes. You can start a side hustle or 2 or 3. You don't have to give up your school. You don't have to give up your job, right? You need to reprioritize your time and hustle a little bit and work hard. But, it's no different than picking up a hobby, or it's no different than picking up a sport or an instrument or anything like that. So it really just starts with that and having the motivation and the vision to do something long term. And I think to what I see, there's 3 reasons why people get into entrepreneurship. There's, number one, you just want to make a little extra money, right? Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you're selling stuff on eBay, Amazon, whatever it is, Etsy. monetizing an Instagram page, that's all good. A little extra money, more choice, more flexibility, right? That's awesome. The second way people get into entrepreneurship is they see a problem that they want to solve, right? And they really try to fix that and find that solution. And that really becomes a passion project for them, which is great. And in those two scenarios, there's really nothing complicated about that in my mind. There's nothing really grandiose. It's having the mindset to start and to hustle and work hard, right? There's no real big difficulty or mentality shift that you have to sell stuff on eBay. It's just, you got to go and do it, right? But the third way people get into entrepreneurship is really because they have this vision and this motivation to really make an impact and to create a lifestyle. And I think in that case, entrepreneurship becomes more than just growing a business. It also becomes about growing you as an individual. And the thing that I really had to understand as I started my journey is that Kyle Wilz, at 21 years old, an engineering college student, was not a successful entrepreneur. It didn't mean that I didn't have, those seeds in me, that I didn't have that potential. It just meant that I really had to work on that self-development and growth. So a couple things that really helped me as I dove into self-development materials, whether it be podcasts, whether it be, self-development books, go to different networking events, okay? Start meeting people, get a mentor, learn from them, all of that. Okay, that was something that really helped me. And then I found environments that I could develop skill sets that I saw in successful entrepreneurs. Right, so one thing I did see is that they were comfortable speaking in front of groups, per se, maybe doing a podcast, something like that. That was certainly something I wasn't comfortable doing back when I started my journey. So I looked for opportunities where I could public speak. I looked for opportunities where I could work on an elevator pitch or whatever it might be, or close a deal or sell a product or this or that. So that way it was all my first, honestly, 5 years of my journey, Tyler, and to all you out there, it was just a really big growing and learning experience. Honestly, and did I make some money? Yeah, I did. But that was my focus at the start of my journey, was just learning. I figured there was plenty of time to make the money and scale the businesses after that. So that's my first tip to all of you. And I talked about my second tip before, but networking is going to be very crucial if you want to get into that space. So whether you're on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, any of those social media websites, or professionals in the area, or potentially you have an entrepreneur in your family or a family friend, take the time to talk to them. Give them a call. See if they're willing to teach you. See if they're willing to discuss the idea, especially if they're in the industry that you're looking into. That's the big thing, is because I think one of the hardest things that aspiring entrepreneurs have out there right now is they are bombarded by content. There is no shortage of content, no shortage of advice or opinions or anything like that. So what you've got to get really good at doing is, yes, networking with a lot of people, but then finding that close circle, kind of almost your board of advisors, so to speak, that you can really trust, that you can really rely on and take their advice, and they'll really help you, go each step of the way. And then lastly is figure out a plan. And any business doesn't become something without a plan. It's very important, but you also need to understand that plan is going to fail at some point. There's going to be a hiccup. Something is not going to go as expected. That's what entrepreneurs do. That's you signed up for that coming into the industry. So be willing to be flexible. You need to be willing to call an audible and make a change, and be okay with that while still staying true to your values and what it is you're trying to accomplish, right? So maybe in closing, and then we can get into a little bit of a Q&A, Tyler, but just a couple of quick tips if you're out there thinking about going this route. Number one, have a vision for what you want. Number two, make sure to network and develop those relationships with others, especially in the arena you're interested in. Get a mentor if you need to, okay? Number three, work on growing yourself. Number 4, get that business plan. 5, be willing to execute and adjust. And then one of the most important things is number 6, continue to set new goals. If you're out there wanting to be an entrepreneur, you are motivated. And the thing that motivates you is the fact that you want to create something, right? And you're pushing towards a goal. And if you hit that, the question really becomes what's next. And the best way to motivate yourself is continuing to raise that bar up and set those new goals and keep moving forward. And it's an absolute blast. That's what, I've done. That's what my wife has done. And all the entrepreneurs that I know that have built successful companies long-term. And hope the same for all of you out there.
Yeah. So Kyle, I love what you're talking about here. We could probably geek out on some of this stuff for a real long time. I love entrepreneurship. I'm going to pick 2 or 3 of the areas you've talked about and just ask you a few questions. The first thing, I love that you really put some emphasis there on self-improvement, self-development, and mentioned that it takes a number of years. You're not going to learn everything about entrepreneurship overnight. It's a process. And I've certainly seen that in my own life. I still have a day job. I'm still a teacher and I love being a teacher, but I have things on the side. And in my entrepreneurial world, I'm seeing the same things that, I need to read personal development books. I need to find mentors and things like that. Just quickly, what are 1 or 2 books that were game changers for you?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Put me on the spot really there with that one. I think one I really, really enjoyed because with my engineering background, analytical, I like thinking about things logically. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy was an absolute phenomenal book. And I relate entrepreneurship a lot, Tyler, with sports, just because that's my background. And it's all about improving. You have a goal every season, you're improving. It's all the same things I talked about. And how you get better as an athlete is you practice. And you do those habits on a daily basis. And you don't get in shape running one day or running for a week. You get in shape running every day for an extended period of time. And that's the whole premise of the book, The Compound Effect, is doing those daily habits and making those improvements on a day-to-day basis. So that's one of them. I think The Magic of Thinking Big was one that really changed the way I thought about things. And if we're going to go old school, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill was one of my personal favorites as well. So I'll throw that out there as well.
Right. Well, and with Napoleon Hill's, that one's a big one on visualization. And we haven't talked much on visualization today. There's been a number of books written on that. But that's something that you can do as students right now is, thinking long-term. How do you want to change the world? What problems do you want to solve? And that's such an important part of entrepreneurship. How are you going to help people? What problems are you going to solve for them? And so, yeah, that Think and Grow Rich is a great one in that area. As a 5th grade teacher, I encourage my students to read these kinds of books. As a class last year, we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we've read other personal finance books. And I think you're never too young to start learning about how to make a difference in the world. So that's important.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And on your point about thinking long-term, and that's one of the things that they talk about in The Magic of Thinking Big is beginning with the end in mind. And I think everybody gets so intimidated, Tyler, by that first step. Right. And it's that first step, it's a lot easier to make sense of that when you know what your long-term goal is. Right. But if you don't know what that is, then you're kind of like a chicken with a head cut off, not really sure about where you're going.
Yeah. Now, to add on in this area of self-development, self-improvement, you mentioned podcasts earlier, and what we know about podcasting is most kids under the age of 20 don't listen to podcasts. It's something, interestingly, the most successful people in the world do listen to podcasts. So the target demographic for podcasting is 30 to 50-year-old successful people. That's who listens to podcasts. And so if you want to do yourself a favor in life, start listening to podcasts right now, and you can listen on any topic that interests you. So if you have an interest that you're developing, last year when I lost 100 pounds, I was listening to weight loss podcasts. As I'm doing more public speaking now, I'm listening to speaking podcasts and things like that. Kyle, do you have any podcasts that you want to throw out there that you've really enjoyed over the last few years?
Nothing specific comes to mind. I guess maybe, I'm a really big fan of impact theory.
Okay.
And I just always feel like, Tom brings on such interesting guests and it's just like a really cool learning experience. But no, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with what you said, Tyler, is it doesn't always have to be specifically with what you're looking to do. The whole intention is growth, whether it be good business growth, whether it be self-growth. So what I actually really love about podcasts is that there's rarely a podcast that has like a negative subject.
Right.
It's typically all about growth. It's all about positivity. It's all about learning. So yeah, maybe you don't necessarily need to know all these aspects about health to run a business, but is it going to help you become a better person? Is it going to help you make a better impact? Like, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are looking for, that perfect podcast that's going to change their life. And you're going to listen to this one podcast and everything's going to be different, right? Or you go to that conference and it's this life-changing event. And, that's kind of like what they talk about in the compound effect too, is it's not one specific event. If you want to become successful in the entrepreneurial space, it's a series of events.
Right.
It's continuing to go. And I can't think of one specific talk that changed everything for me. I just know there's been a lot of really great talks that made me think about things different and helped me with that, day-to-day growth that I needed.
Yeah, well, and you bring up a really good point that it is about the growth. And I think the way that we look at podcasts is the same way a lot of kids look at YouTube. So the average YouTube watcher subscribes to over 100 channels. Does that mean that they faithfully watch every video from every channel? No, they find the stuff that's interesting to them. They watch that stuff. Same thing on podcasts. The average podcast listener is subscribed to over 30 different podcasts. But that doesn't mean they're listening to every show every day. It means they're finding the stuff that's in the area that interests them. They're learning from that and moving on. And so that's certainly an opportunity for kids. Kyle, you talked a bit about networking, and I want to get into this a little bit because you were talking specifically about some of the opportunities you had while you were in college. And, it's interesting. We're in a changing world. And 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I would have said to every kid in high school, prepare for college. You need to go to college. And today we live in a different world where you can start business ventures on the side. However, I'll put in this plug for higher learning. There have been a lot of successful people who didn't go to college or dropped out. I think of like Bill Gates, who dropped out. But one of the things you mentioned was the people that you connected with while you were in college. And I think that's so important, that while you're doing good things, you're going to meet people who are doing good things, and that's who you want to associate with. And so if for no other reason, one good reason to look at going to a good school is because those are the kind of people you'll hang out with. Those are the kind of people that will become your business partners and your mentors. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the value of some of the people you met while you were in school and how you've maintained relationships with them, or how they've helped you to get to the next step.
Yeah, they were absolutely crucial, because I think, for a lot of people, they feel like the entrepreneurial world is a lonely one. And you're making this decision to step outside your comfort zone. And for many entrepreneurs, they didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. Right? I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think I read something somewhere that of the millionaires through entrepreneurship in the US, 90% of them are first generation.
Yep. Same.
Meaning that they didn't inherit all this money, right? They didn't do anything like that. They created it on themselves. And you're a product of your environment, right? If you hang around with people who have bad habits, you're going to develop those bad habits, right? If you hang around with people who like a certain sport, you're going to probably start to like that certain sport or that team. When you think about the sports teams that you follow, why do you follow them? In most cases, it's because, well, your family followed them and that's who you grew up with, right? So same thing happens in the business world. And what I needed to do if I wanted to go the entrepreneurial route is not that there was anything wrong with the people I was hanging out with that weren't pursuing entrepreneurship, but a lot of them weren't looking past what was going on that weekend or what they were going to do for spring break. So, I met a lot of friends in college that were also doing entrepreneurial pursuits. And I think it gave me a good example. It gave me, some people that I could relate to, that we could share our struggles, we could share our victories, right? The quote that comes to mind is a rising tide raises all ships. And I've heard that several times. And I think just when you get around other people who are forward moving, who are trying to do something, you can't help but want to push yourself. And one of the quotes that I just love is, if you take the 5 people you hang around with the most, right, and average their lifestyle, average their incomes, that's about where you're going to be, because that's where your comfort zone is. So what I tried to do was really get out of my comfort zone and, become friends with students who were doing things even to a bigger extent as I would. I went and networked with some professionals who were already running successful companies, and that's where I got the advice, right, in both the business world and in life. Because I think one of the things I see with new entrepreneurs is they're making really good decisions in their business, but then they make bad life decisions. That ends up impacting their ability. So, for all those reasons, I think I went in a lot of different ways there, but it absolutely is huge and crucial. And you're a product of your environment. And for you high schoolers out there that are watching this, or middle schoolers, and your mom, you've heard her say, I don't want you hanging out with those kids. There is a reason. You might not think that your mom knows what she's talking about, but she absolutely does. And what's cool is, like I said, it can work in the reverse. You can hang out with people who really stretch you and push you to grow, and you'll become better through it.
Well, and the cool thing with that too is, as you get older, there are more and more opportunities to network, to meet people. A lot of adults right now are telling you kids out there, stay away from social media, don't waste your time on stuff like that. But as you get older, some real opportunities. I mean, just this week, I've talked to 5 Olympians, 4 people in the NFL, a few entrepreneurs like Kyle, and I met them all on social media. I met them on LinkedIn, which is a little more professional than other social media platforms. But there are so many opportunities for anyone to go out there and network, meet amazing people, and even start relationships where you're working with them. So I wonder, Kyle, if there maybe are some people that you have met through social media in some forms that you now have relationships with today.
Yeah, well, LinkedIn's been very big for me, Tyler. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs, podcast hosts like yourself, that's opened some doors to cool opportunities. I've met, amazing people that we didn't help directly, but we developed the relationship on social media, and I knew somebody that they could help, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. So helping people with a job change, or just, on a side hustle or whatever it might be. So absolutely. I mean, I think actually when I think of it right now, there's a pretty hefty percentage of the relationships I have in the business world that were developed through social media. So I certainly would not say ignore social media if that's what you're hearing. Be careful though. Watch who you're connecting with. It's just like who you hang out with in person. Watch who you're connected with on social media. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to a lot of people is, think about your profile as your brand. Think about you as an individual as your brand, and what does your profile say about you, right? And if you want to go and network with entrepreneurs or people that can really help you out in life, what does your profile say about you that would make them want to connect with you, right? So one of the things that we do with a lot of people that we work with is we go through, I'm not a brand expert or anything like that, but we go through kind of a pseudo branding experience with them. And we help them carve out, like, what are your values, and what do you believe in, and where do you want to go, and what do you want your profile to say about you? So that way, as you get more involved on social media and start, those conversations and connections and potentially producing content, right? Your profile lines up with all that, and people really get a good sense of who you are and what you're looking to do.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And in fact, a testimonial for that right now is the reason Kyle and I connected was we connected through LinkedIn. And the reason he's on the show is because of what his profile says about him. I've connected with thousands of entrepreneurs and millionaires and even some billionaires, and they're not on the show, but Kyle is, because of what I read on his profile and that first impression I had of him. And so that is so, so important.
Absolutely.
So Kyle, earlier you talked about some of the people that you've connected with and how you're seeking out people who are giving you advice, not just in business, but making good life decisions. One thing that we don't talk about enough in the entrepreneurial world is our personal health. And you didn't address this at all either, so I'm going to dig into it now. What kind of role is fitness and diet in your business right now? Like, how much of a difference does it make in your productivity?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the things a lot of people talk about, Tyler, is time management, right? And my mentor, and coincidentally my brother-in-law, same person, there's a story I won't get into for this podcast. He made this statement once, and it really resonated with me. And it was this idea that you can't manage your time, right? There's 24 hours in a day. That's all you get, right? But if you want to be productive and effective, what you need to start looking at is managing your energy levels. And I think this was something that was just like my mind got blown together because, I thought of it, and, he made this statement once to me. He's like, yeah, I never really eat a light dinner, or I never really eat a heavy dinner before I have a night where I'm speaking or have appointments, whatever it is, because it makes me dreary and tired. And I was just like, man, like just the other day I had this big spaghetti dinner and I was like out for the couch. Like my head hit the couch and I was out. And I think that's just been one thing that I've been really cognizant of, is how do I feel after certain meals and certain types of food, and how do I feel after workouts? And I don't do it to run half marathons or compete in any competitions or anything like that, but it's really about, as you said, how can I maximize my days by putting a focus on health and exercise and what I eat.
Yeah, cool. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think that is often neglected. And what I've seen, especially with successful business people, is they'll build up their business and they'll be stressed out and they'll be working so hard and doing everything to get in order. But as soon as they reach any level of success, it's amazing how many successful entrepreneurs then hire a personal trainer, get a nutritionist, make their health a priority, because as they were climbing the ladder, that's one of the mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs make, is they neglect their health. They're not as productive. They're not getting as much done. They're not as happy. And so that's why a lot of businesses fizzle, is because the entrepreneurs can't keep up with those demands. And if you're making a few smart decisions now and starting those habits, in middle school and high school, you're going to be much more successful.
100%.
Cool. Well, Kyle, I appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with us. It gets me excited just because I think we're raising this new generation of entrepreneurs that are going to change the world. And so I'm excited about that. If they want to connect with you or follow what you're doing with your businesses, where's the best place for them to find you online?
Best place is going to be LinkedIn. I'm very active. I put out videos, content on a weekly basis. So you can just follow me at Kyle Wilz on LinkedIn, and really look forward to connecting with any of you out there that decide to go that route.
Cool. Thanks, Kyle, for your time. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Tyler.